Good evening all, how are you? Good evening Wayne, Tony Dunn, Jennifer, Shay, Greg, good evening. I think I said good evening to Wayne. I'm just going back over the chat here. Good evening Dave O.T. Steve Robbins, good evening. Good evening John Mooney. Pete, how are you? Good evening, sir. Evening, Joseph. Hello, Bram. Good evening. How are you? Can everybody hear me okay? Good evening, Steve. Hello, Dave. How are you? Don't forget to give my love to Fee, of course. And Leona, good evening to you. And if I've missed anybody up to now, then my apologies, but good evening to you. Clive Perrott, good evening. Good evening, Jax. How are you? That's very kind of you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hope everybody's had a good week. Thank you, Leona. Glad to hear the sound's okay. Picture looks a bit dark, actually. Is it a bit dark? No, it's not. It's not too bad. Not too bad. I've got a bit of a suntan, of course, you know. Trey Hyde, good evening. Good evening, Kenan and Nigel. Hi, Longmore, good evening to you. Michael McGar, good evening. I was the reason you started turning. Well, I do apologise, Michael. Accept my humble apologies. Scott, good evening. Tornado Woodturning, how are you? Russell Clark, good evening, Russ. Are you well, sir? Danny Strickland, Don McGee, good evening. Good evening, Tim Roberts. Graham Burdett, good evening, how are you? Pedro Aratia, good evening to you, sir. Saludos. Conan Power, good evening. Good evening, Glyn, how are you, sir? Good evening, Mr. Wood Dude, how are you? Midnight Joker, good evening. Grant Fulbrook, good evening. Got about 4 minutes before we start. As most of you are aware, I'm sure this is basically aimed at the newer turner, but I'm really pleased to see some more experience. Good evening, Mr. Stratton. Good evening, I missed you. I thought you weren't going to come tonight. And Brian, good evening. Good evening, Malcolm. The reason tonight is basically for the newer turner, but I'm glad, as I was going to say, that the more experienced, some experienced turners have turned up, and hopefully any questions that are asked in the chat that I miss, because I'm doing my bit, can be answered. If not, I will obviously stop to answer any questions. I think it's not going to be longer than about maybe, I don't know, 3/4 of an hour for what I have to say, and then we can just do a questions after that. Dutch Turner, Andrew, good evening, how are you? Steve Jeremiah, good evening to you, sir. Alf Rose, good evening. David Wheeler, good evening to you. Good evening, James, Wessex Technical. Just going to go to the break a second. And those of you who know me well know why. Good evening, Terence. Terence Bartlett from Plymouth Woodturners. Rich Ely, good evening. How are you? Good evening. I like your Blair. Good turn daily. That's an excellent handle to have, Blair. Good evening to you. Klondike Craftsman, good evening, sir. Nice to see you. Don McGee, good evening. A vape break? Good grief, Don, I don't know what you mean. Good evening, Fold Coast Woodturning, good evening to you. 55 Stan Muck, good evening, how are you? And Mr. Bear Woodcraft, good evening to you as well. And Lenny, good evening. David Lee, good evening to you. Just a couple of minutes and we'll get started. Good evening, Thomas. Thomas Kroll, Gary Y, good evening. Wiles of Leicestershire. Not too far from me then. Good evening, Brian. Brian Davis, how are you? Phil Scarlett. Hello, Phil. Nice to see you. Oliver's Woodturning. Good evening, Mr. Ed. How are you? Oh, Mr. Ed, that's showing my age. The talking horse. Mind you, Ed's not much different to a talking horse, really. Joe Senior. Hello, Joe. Nice to see you, my dear. I hope you're well. Bob Osterberg. Good evening. Mick Dews. Good evening. Derek Dale Woodart. Good evening to you. And good evening, Mark, the gentleman woodturner. And I love woodturning. So do I. Good evening to you, Adam. James Pritchard, good evening, James. How are you? Shamai. I think that's about it, and it's just about 1 minute to go. Paul Smith, good evening. How are you? Leroy, good evening. Leroy. Brian Stapley, good evening. Sunny Pool, it's sunny in Bedfordshire as well, Brian. Neil M, good evening to you, sir. Okay, well, hello and welcome to everybody. What I intend to do tonight is to go through, try and answer the most popular questions I get asked, and I went through this, and there are about a list of 10. So I decided to break it down into 4 or 5, maybe even 6 separate entities, because I want to try and go into it as deeply as I can, and hopefully, as I say, it will throw up questions as well from the viewers, the newer turners, etc., and everybody has a different take on things. So this is the way I do things. These are my thoughts only, of course, for you to go away and contemplate, the newer turner. And I've done a bit of work this afternoon trying to get some bits together. There won't be any turning, but it's basically going through the theory, if you like, of good work holding. So I'll go to the overhead and we will commence. I keep on wanting to use my mouse, but I've got this Stream Deck now and I must use that. Okay, so we're going overhead. So if we start from the very beginning, most lathes, if not all lathes, come with 3 parts for work holding. They come with a drive and a revolving centre, and also a faceplate. Now the prong drive, 4-prong drive, is a very secure method of holding your work. We're going to cover between centres first. There's not a lot to go on about with that, but there's a couple of ways. Now we're going to assume at the moment that the new turner hasn't got a chuck. So using the equipment that comes with your lathe, as I say, you have this 4-prong drive. You can see I've already got it in position. I've turned it around already, but what you do, you literally put the 4-prong drive on in the centre and whack it with a hammer. Now I've done it already, so don't use an ordinary metal hammer, a wooden mallet, or a rubber type will suffice. That goes into the drive centre, and then you bring up your tailstock and advance the quill so that, lock the quill down. Now your piece is secure. And the thing is, with spindle turning, which is what this is called, obviously, between centres is possibly the most secure way of turning, because you have 2 points of contact on the piece, and when it spins you have got complete safety, if you like, because you've got these 2 points of contact. Now, not just for spindle turning, but your 4-prong drive can also be used for bowl turning. And the way that can be done, again, we just take this blank, it has to be trued up, has to be round, has to be shaped, but you could start the process, if you so wish, by again locating the prong drive, locating the center, locking it down, and again you have a secure method of truing up the edge and forming a tenon should you so wish. This is a very thin platter, so not a good example really, but it's just to show what you can do. So let's just pretend, if you like, that you've turned this down and you've turned your tenon. This is assuming that you've got a chuck. So how would you go about finishing this or starting this if you didn't have a chuck? Now I have got a series of videos on my channel called No Chuck, No Problem, which actually covers turning a goblet, a bowl and a box with a glue block and not a chuck. It is a little bit of a long-winded way of doing things, but nevertheless it can be done. Now I'm a great exponent of glue blocks. Now by glue blocks I mean hot glue. I use hot glue. Now this is a glue block that I've actually got a 33.5 nut epoxied in there, and that fits on to the spindle directly. And then what I would do, by means of the hole in the middle here, I literally put that rod through, locate the center of the blank and glue the glue block to the blank. So that means then I can turn the back, put a tenon or a mortise, whatever, and spin it round to go into the chuck. And I'm assuming that we have a chuck, obviously. Now if you don't want to go through either getting a nut like this, you can actually chase the threads. You can get a beel tap to the thread of your spindle and chase the threads into a block of wood. If you have not got the wherewithal or the want to do that, if you have a chuck, you can merely turn a tenon on a spare bit of wood, and then you can put it into your chuck, and there's your sacrificial glue block. So that is another method of attaching a piece of work. If you have a chuck, sorry, before I go into the next thing, and of course the next thing that you get with your lathe, as I explained, is a faceplate. Take that off, and I've actually attached the faceplate that came with my lathe to a bowl blank, and you locate the center of your blank, and again I've just made this little center finder, if you like. I've located the center of the blank, that goes in, helps me to center the faceplate, and then I screw the faceplate down. You could use all the screws if you so wish. I use 30mm wood screws, good quality ones. Maybe use them twice or 3 times, and then I use a fresh one, because that just keeps the integrity. So that goes straight on to your spindle, and you would turn the back of the bowl and then form your tenon or your mortise in the base of the bowl. Now faceplates are a great thing, but there is another method for using a faceplate. If you get a little faceplate like this, you can use that as a glue block as well, for your spindle turning, for small bowls, etc. Now I have actually turned a 19-inch bowl with a glue block, and it was 3.5 inches thick, and the integrity of the glue has never been compromised in all the years I've used hot glue. You could use wood glue, you can use CA glue. My preference is hot glue. The caveats involved with hot glue, let's go back to my face for a minute. The caveats with hot glue are, number one, that the glue is as hot as you can possibly get it. That my preference is that the glue block is cross grain and the wood is dry. The blank you're attaching with hot glue is dry, and by dry I mean anything between 8 and 12%. It's not wet wood, and obviously the glue block is dry as well. Now normally with most glues, the glue I use certainly, when you apply the glue it starts to go opaque, and you know then that it's starting to cure. Give it 10 minutes and it's okay. If you use wood glue or CA glue, you have to give more time for it to cure properly. Wood glue, if you used, for example, Tight Bond, I personally would leave it overnight. That's just me. Okay, now another form of faceplate that you can have is a faceplate ring, and this actually, quite a few manufacturers do these, where that fits into the dovetail of your chuck jaws, the dovetail jaws, and that means then that you can do the underneath of your bowl, and then you just unscrew the faceplate, you've made your tenon, spin it round and you put it into your chuck, which I'll show you in a second. Let's go to chucks. It surprises me. Oh, one thing I wanted to say as well. With the 4-prong drive, a lot of people have seen me use these step centers. Now, in my opinion, I started using step centers when I first started turning. The reason for that is that you can tighten up or have as loose the pressure as you wish. So if you should get a catch, it will slip his moorings, as it were, so you don't get an horrendous catch. All you have to do then is to tighten up the quill, and you can start again. So for the newer turner, it's worthwhile considering step centers because of that characteristic. I use them 90% of the time now because I've got used to using them, and I like using them, and I've never had a problem. That was just something I should have mentioned actually from the beginning. So with a chuck, the most important thing with any work holding, whether it be a chuck, whether it be a glue block, between centers, whatever, is security. And it absolutely amazes me how many people don't realise that there is an optimum size for both a tenon and a mortise. And this is what I've got to show you now. So I'll go back to the overhead, and that should give enough. Yeah, that's fine. So these jaws are the C jaws from Axminster. They have a dovetail on the outside for a mortise, and on the inside they are straight with a lip at the end to grab the tenon. There is an optimum size for both tenon and mortise. Now, for this it's a 56 mil, so the diameter of the tenon should be 56 mil. Okay, and what I'm going to show you now is the problem and the danger that arises if you don't have the correct diameter for your tenon. Now this tenon is actually 67 mil. Okay, now bearing in mind the optimum size is 56 mil, and what that means is 56 mil gives a perfect circle, which means you get the best hold. Now first off you can see there is a huge gap here between the jaws. Okay, and also here obviously that is replicated on the tenon. If I put this light on, you might be able to just see there is a small gap between the base of the tenon and the back of the jaws. Now the tenon should never come into contact with the base of the jaws. It needs to be flush against the front of the jaw. That is an important point to mention as well. Now you can see the gap here. Also the jaws are well above the body of the, let's switch to that one here, and you can see there that the jaws are well above the body of the chuck. Now if we come up close, you will see that we're actually only making contact, and I couldn't work out how to do this, but I managed to do it this afternoon. These black marks actually, let's put that on there, is that better? Those black marks there constitute the contact of the jaws on the work. There are 8 points of contact, but we've only got 4 jaws. They're not making complete contact with that tenon. Now if I go to the tailstock end, you can see how far out those jaws are. Now if I close them down to the correct 56mm, okay, number 1, you can see that the gap here, the gap between the jaws is much reduced now, and it's normally about 6 or 7mm, and that represents the width of the blade that has been used to cut the jaws from a solid piece of, in this case, stainless steel. So it's the kerf, if you like. So at this point it's making a perfect circle. Now if we look at the points of contact after doing that correctly, you can see there now, hopefully, we've got complete contact, only 4 points of contact, but it's the complete jaw is making contact with that tenon, giving a superb, secure hold. And of course the other option is making the tenon much too small, which I did at UKIS in 2016 in my first public demo, and I had 3 attempts, and each time it was too small to fit into the jaws. Great embarrassment, but a great source of enjoyment for my audience. Now similarly, we have the option of doing a mortise. Now sometimes the beauty of a mortise actually is that you can keep the mortise as a feature, but again that has an optimum on these set of jaws, and each set of jaws will have a different measurement. This is 69mm. Now here we've got much too big a mortise. Okay, still secures, but it's not secure as it can be. And similarly to the tenon, the points of contact are just 4, and they're the high points of each jaw. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, you've only got 4 points of contact. And again, it will prove the point that if we have the correct size of mortise, and in this case, as I say, 69mm, you can see that the gap is much less between, as was on the tenon, and you will also see here that we're having internally, this is the point of contact, the whole jaw is contacting the wood. One caveat with doing mortises: always make sure there's sufficient wood surrounding your mortise to take the pressure of the jaws expanding. And don't ask me how I know this. In the very early days I did it once and it just splits the wood, but it is a very good way and secure way of holding a bowl, either a mortise or a tenon. If you do a tenon, normally you'd have to reverse your bowl to take off the foot because you have a tenon. Now there are several ways of doing that as well. You can either use a set of button jaws or cold jaws. I haven't got mine set up now, but I have a picture of the Axminster button jaws, which I do have, and that picture there shows you that you can compress onto a bowl, to reverse it, to turn off the foot, or indeed with certain shapes of lip you could actually expand the buttons into the rim of the bowl to take off the foot. If you haven't got a set of button jaws, all is not lost. Unfortunately, I've only got a small bowl, but this will show. This has a thread. I tapped the thread into the wood here, and I hot glued it to a plate. And then under this, I've had this about 7 years, is some matting to give a bit of grip, and I've covered it with cloth. So it's a bit spongy under there. So all you have to do is you put your friction drive, this is only a small, it's a little small English walnut bowl, but the foot does have to come off. And then you place that against your friction drive. Always, if you're going to take a foot off, you will keep the center point. So you just put, this is going to have warped a bit because I turned this quite a long time ago. And then that allows you then to turn away the foot. And all you'd be left with is a little nub in the middle there, which you can hand sand. So, as I say, all is not lost if you haven't got button jaws. The other method is a vacuum chuck, which I haven't got, never used, but I am told they are also very good bits of kit. So that is another method of reversing your bowl. And let me just see one more thing, I think. Yeah. One thing I did forget to mention, and I did plan this out so well, you know, is a worm screw. Now, with the system that I've got, the worm screw actually is integral with the chuck. You put the plate inside the dovetail with the C-jaws, that's the dovetail jaws, and there is your worm screw. You would then drill a hole, in this instance it would be 7mm, and then literally you would screw your blank on to the worm screw. And that is another way of mounting a bowl. There are many different methods of holding things. One thing I don't like, and I do see people do it, and the only reason I don't like it is because I've got a bit of wood here. You quite often see people, I don't know if it's going to fit in here actually, I think the jaws will fall out, will they? Will we make it? I think we might. Doing that, where you're putting the wood, not turning a tenon or a mortise, sorry, for this, a tenon, you're not turning a tenon to go into the chuck, you do that. Now, if the blank is completely square, okay, but again, you're only going to be getting, if I go to the, I'm at the tailstock end, you're only getting 8 points of contact, and I personally feel that is a little bit unsafe. The only time I would ever do that is if I've got a very small piece, I'm doing a finial, I might do it, but I certainly wouldn't do it with a larger piece. This has gone a lot quicker than I'd expected, but having said that, it's good because it leaves time for questions. So I'll go back to my ugly mug and take a drink, and I virtually covered what I wanted to cover, and the reason for doing it, well, not so quickly, is to leave it open for questions from newer turners, etc., should they have any, and if possible I can demonstrate it for you. But those are a lot of the questions that I get asked regarding work holding. It is imperative to get, in summary, If you're using a chuck, it is imperative to get the size of the tenon and the size of the mortise to an exact measurement that you can, because that will give you the maximum holding power. And each manufacturer will have, each chuck will have a different measurement. Joseph King is heckling. Hi Andrew, Mike Douglas. Well, that basically is what I have to say. So if there are any questions, I'll be more than good evening Martin, more than happy to answer them. Mark Pritchard asks me, how deep should you go on a mortise? It depends on the actual depth of your dovetail. My advice always is to go just short of the back of the jaws. So if we go to the overhead, James, the depth of these jaws is 8 mil from the base to the tip. So you want to be a maximum of 7 mil depth, because as I explained, you don't want to be hitting the back of that jaw. I hope that answers your question, James. Ian Blackman, how do you know the best circumference for each chuck? Axminster are the only chucks I've ever used. Or that's not totally correct, but the ones I use and I've used for the longest, and with each chuck they have their optimum sizes of mortise and tenon for that particular type of jaw, because all jaws have different measurements, but they come with the jaw set, or they're normally on a website at least. Hello Mike Peace Woodturning, I'm honoured. How are you, sir? Hello from Atlanta. I hope you're recovering well, Mike. Nick Castle, with a long worm screw, can it be shortened by putting packing? Yes, you can. If the worm screw is too long for a smaller piece, I've lost my worm screw now. Where's it gone? Ah, there it is. Yeah, if you, that's a good point actually. I should have mentioned that, but I didn't. And that's what it's all about tonight. I mean, if we take a piece like this, which is only an experimental piece, you can see the worm screw actually virtually exceeds the diameter, the thickness. So I just have these packers. You put a packer on, and then that will be okay, and possibly even another one for a small piece like that. As long as you get a minimum of 2 or 3 threads in on a small piece like this, you can just keep on putting the packers in. But yeah, good point. Oh, that's good, Mike. I'm glad to hear, mate. Brian Harwood, hi, Mike. Peace. Bob was with Nick. How small should the screw compare to a woodworm screw? How small should the screw compared? I don't follow that, I'm afraid. Sorry about that, Douglas. Should the screw compare to a woodworm screw? Ah, so maybe you mean the hole. The hole, in my opinion, should be at least 1.5 to 2 mil smaller than the hole, depending on the type of wood you're using, so that the threads get a good purchase on the material. Martin Bartlett, hi Mike, just started turning, just a quick question, sure. Is silver birch okay to turn, as I have a fair amount available? How long do I need to dry before using it to make bowls, etc.? Silver birch, I've actually never turned it, but I know a lot of people that have. It's a good wood to turn. The drying times vary on the size of the log, the size of the trunk, the branch, whatever, and the length. Normally, they say it's about 1 inch a year, but to be quite honest with you, I've never found it. It all depends how big the log is. If you have a log about 3 or 4 inches, to get completely dry, if it's totally wet, it's going to take around that time. Always seal the edges, seal the ends I should say, and leave the logs as long as possible, because you'll always get a little bit of end checking. That means then that when it is dry you can just cut the ends off, get rid of the checking on the end, and if you coat it with anchor seal or use PVA glue, a couple of coats of PVA glue, and that slows the drying process and reduces the amount of checking that you get. And if you're making bowls, you could actually wet turn them and then leave about an inch wall thickness all round, and then pack them in shavings and a brown paper bag or brown paper. That is one method. There are many methods, and let it dry, and it'll take about 4 or 5 months, and then you can finish turn it. And if you do that, always make sure that the tenon you put on there is a bit bigger, because there will be movement and it'll become oval, and you'll have to true that tenon up. What's the maximum blank I would use in sea jaws? I'll be honest with you, I'd have no problem whatsoever. I mean, I can turn 22 inches over here, depending. I would go up to an 18-inch bowl, 19-inch bowl, no problem at all. Depends how thick it is. If it's a thick piece, I might go to a bigger set, but I'd have no problem turning. I mean, I've turned a 21-inch bowl with a glue block, so you know the jaws themselves again are very, very adequate. But if you're going for bigger stuff, a bigger set of jaws obviously would make more sense. Dutchwood, what size drill bit for worm screws? How much smaller than the screw? Well, again, I just said earlier on, Bailey's Woodworks, I normally go a mil and a half, let's say, around that area. So if this worm screw, I believe, is 8 mil, so I would take a 6.5, 7 mil, depending on the wood. If the wood is very soft, I might go a little bit smaller on the actual drill size to give the threads a good purchase on the wood. Not a question, but something a bit worrying. Oops, hang on, I just lost you. Good evening, Paul Lockwood, how are you? Terry Sykes, good evening, sir. Douglas Mungum, is there a rule of thumb for drill size to worm screw or soft and hardwood? Yeah, as I've just said, Douglas, I like to go a couple of mil on softer woods to give those threads a good chance to get a good purchase. On a harder wood, you know, you can get away with a mil and a half, I would say. The way to try it is just to drill a few holes with a worm screw you've got on a spare bit of wood and see what you need to use. Thank you. Nobody wanted to see my face anyway. Thanks for that, Mark. I was so intent on looking at the questions, I completely ignored the screen. Thank you for that. Pete says the drill size should be the same as the solid shaft, not including the thread. Yeah, I'd go with that. Evening, Terry. He's probably vaping. No, I wasn't actually. But now you've mentioned it. Tim Stevens, thanks so much for all your videos. That's my pleasure. Thank you for watching. My pleasure. Brian Stabley, if you use a faceplate ring, yeah, you can leave it attached to the work and remove it from the chuck and put it back later. Also, they are the cheapest. Yeah, that is true, Brian. The faceplate rings are very, very handy. Glenn May. Hello, Glenn. How are you? Martin Barnett. Thanks, Mike. I did my silver birch to 6. Yeah, 4 to 5. Yeah, that's great, Martin. Yeah, you've done everything right there, mate. Glenn May. Hello. Do you have a preference for the square-sided serrated jaws now or yes? The reason I used the dovetails tonight was because of the worm screw and the faceplate ring. My favourite jaws have been for years the what they call the medium gripper jaws, and they're serrated, straight jaws, serrated inside and outside. and they are brilliant. The only slight downside of using those for a mortise on a bowl, for example, is obviously they're going to mark the inside of the mortise, so I never use them when I'm doing a bowl, but for everything else virtually I use them when I can. Spindle turning all the time. Douglas is asking about hardwood, softwood difference. Yes, I mean hardwood, I would still use that sort of a rule of thumb where the shaft of the worm screw is the hole size you need to drill. But personally, if it's very soft wood, I would go slightly smaller because it'll tear the wood up otherwise. Thanks for that, Bob. Yep, agreed. Evening, Richard Phelan, how are you? Yeah, yes, Simon, I missed your question, but I did say earlier on that it's very important to make sure that the blank is tight up against the jaw face and that the tenon is not so long that it touches the back of the jaw, otherwise you won't get a good seating. Yeah, Doug Bennett says, to save remembering or looking at the optimum dimensions, I've been taught to lay an ordinary pencil in the jaw gap. Yep, ordinary pencil in the jaw gap and loosely tighten the jaws to the pencil. Yeah, there are many more than one ways of skinning a cat, Doug, and that is one of them. Excellent. I mean, the thing is to remember that the blade that cuts the jaws, because they are cut out of one solid piece of steel, is the kerf, and that's between 6 and 7 mil. So 6 and 7 mil will give you virtually the optimum size. And the reason for the optimum size is when it's at that measurement, it gives you a perfect circle, which gives you the best hold. Michael McGaha, would you like some Chinese Empress tree blocks? I've tried about 30 feet for you. Would you love to see what you do, Sam? I never say no to wood, Michael. Never. Message me. Message me on Facebook, Messenger, and we'll have a chat. Thank you for the offer. Bob Osterberg, Mike, have you ever used a face plate ring with your Easy Woodchuck? I don't use my Easy Woodchuck now. I only use the Axminster. I didn't know that the Easy Wood had a ring, actually. John Mooney, hi Mike. When you use the hot glue, do you just go around the piece or do you put some underneath as well? I just go around the, I put it around the edge of the blank to be stuck. Put that up, let that dry, and then I do a bead around the join as well, and I've always found that is more than adequate. And there's always make sure there's a very slight dish on the glue block so that you get a good seating around the edge. Well, actually, owner, I hate to disagree. I never put glue in the middle. Never have done. I do a good bead where it's going to come into contact with the glue block, and then do the bead on the outside. That's just me. But if it works for you, you do it your way. What is the maximum length spindle before a steady rest is recommended? To be honest with you, I always would use a steady rest when needed, but length isn't so much the problem, it's more the thickness of the spindle. But I would say anything over 10-12 inches would need a little bit of support. If you're doing a goblet, of course, you can bring the tailstock up and give a little bit of support that way. But if you're doing something which is bigger and longer, then a steady rest. I mean, I made my own years ago and I use it quite a lot on certain stuff, because my argument is this: if you can get some extra stability, there's no kudos in, oh look, I didn't use a steady rest. If you can, as much stability as you can achieve, use it. If it's there, use it, in my opinion. It's like bringing up the tailstock when you're doing a bowl. If you bring the tailstock up for a certain length of time, that's extra security while you're turning. Mark Pritchard, Mike, do you have Simon Hope negotiable rate? I'm sorry? I don't know what you mean, Mark. I'm sorry. Leona Faye Woodturning, I can take that easy wood. Thank you for that, Leona. I've always put glue on the inside, but I think it's better without. Yeah, well, Klondike, I agree. I've never done it, but there you go. It doesn't mean to say it can't be done. I did stick some on the bottom, but it cured before I had a chance to stick it. Yeah. I agree, John. Bailey Woodworks. I put glue in the middle last time and broke the block because I couldn't get it to melt it off. So I'm only going around the edges now. As I say, what I suggest is a good bead around the edge of the glue block. Put your piece on it, and then when it's dry, just go around to the bead. A bead around the join as well, just for a bit of extra security, as Leona says. It might be a good idea to mention which screws not to use on a faceplate, i.e. drywall. Well, I didn't actually say what not to use. I did say to use a good quality wood screw with good, decent threads. I'll use these with a good substantial thread. These are 30mm, and that's all I've ever used, and they've never let me down. But yes, don't use things like drywall screws because they're brittle. You need a good quality wood screw. Thanks for that, Frederick, appreciate it. Steve Wilson, could you show the profile cutting edge? Oops, hang on, let's go here. Lost you. Oops. Right, could you, this is from Steve Wilson, could you show the profile cutting edge of a 3/8 spindle gouge? I have a Robert Sorby tools but can't get it to cut and think I have changed the profile while sharpening. Right, okay, I haven't got a Robert Sorby. That is that my 45? Let's just check. Yeah. There you are, Steve. I have done this before actually. That's the will it show it? Come on, focus. That's the profile of my 3/8 spindle gouge. What you really want, you want the wings to be either straight or slightly curving down to the nose. You don't want it to be dished in the middle, because then you've basically only got 2 points to cut on the wing. That I suggest might be a problem. You've got a very slight dish on the... I do intend to do one of these on bevel angles and sharpening over the next few weeks as well, if that's any help. I'd like to thank somebody, Thingfish, thank you very much indeed. You're a gentleman, I appreciate it. I'm well behind on the chat, so I'm going to get up to date with the chat. And hello Patrick, how are you? Working hard, mate, glad to hear it. I'm just going back over the chat a minute. Make sure you don't colour glue sticks that are out there, the most plastic than glue. Right, okay. Yeah, that is another point. If you're using glue sticks, use good quality ones. Again, it's not because it's Axminster. I've used these for 9 years. They're the 9mm glue sticks, and they are brilliant. And the good thing about them is when you've actually put them on to the work, when it comes back to this colour, you know it's cured. So that's an indication as well. They also do a yellow one, which I think has the same grabbing potential as those, but there are some, I'm not too sure it's glue sticks is the problem, Martin. I think sometimes the glue guns don't get the glue hot enough. I wouldn't suggest using what I call a craft glue gun, the little ones. They just don't get the glue hot enough, in my opinion. Should the faceplate screws, Mark Pritchard, should the faceplate screws be in 7 threads? I'm not sure what you mean by that, I'm afraid, Mark. Sorry, being a bit thick. James Cassidy, that was a good deal. My goodness. Robert Sorby Pro Edge video on YouTube give good advice on resetting the angles. Yes, Robert Sorby do, I do. I've done a I've done a video on sharpening with the Pro Edge as well, as have a lot of people. I do intend to do one, a live one. That is my intention in the near future. I use a craft glue gun, then heat it more with a heat gun. Thank you, Pete. Jess Cos. Thank you, sir. You're a gentleman. Very kind. Just going to quickly scroll back to see if there's anything I've missed. I'm sure there must be. So, has anybody got more questions? And I haven't had a vape in over an hour. My goodness me, I have to give up. I think I've caught up with the chat now, so I'll be keeping a beady eye on it. You do that, Steve? Yeah, I'll do that, mate. No problem at all. Or better still, come down for a visit. Oh, one thing I didn't mention, which I think is very important. So pay attention, people. And this applies to all tenons, especially wet wood. When you've actually seated your jaws and you're turning away, always double check that it is tight, because don't forget what happens is you're compressing onto the tenon, so you're compressing the fibres. Not quite as prevalent in drier wood, but certainly in wet wood, because you're squeezing it, so your integrity will be compromised. So always go back and just give it a little tweak to keep tightening it. And I apologise for getting to say that. Do you have the Simon Hope? Oh, sorry, Mark Pritchard. Do you have the Simon Hope negative rake? Yes, I do. This bad boy here. Lovely bit of, whoop, let's get in shot. Lovely bit of kit. Really works well. Very effective. Easy to sharpen. You just have to hone it. Very rarely have I taken. Bob, you're very kind. You're an absolute gentleman. Thank you so much. James City Mall branch closed their skill centre, hence sale. Ah, right. Okay, Mike Peace. Hang on a minute. Record Power SC is an excellent chuck. I prefer the larger SC4, especially if you plan to do larger lathe. I'm really happy to see you here, Mike. I'm glad you're well enough to be here, and your input is always very much appreciated. Do I prefer Jim Noye Buzz has asked, do I prefer a mortise or a tenon? It depends on what I'm doing. 9 times out of 10, if I'm spindle work will always be a tenon. With a bowl, mortise and tenon, it depends whether I want to keep the foot. If I want to keep the foot, or I haven't got a problem having a foot, then I will do a mortise. And the beauty of a mortise is you can always put it back to do a little bit of trimming up if you need to. So it really depends on the aesthetics. I haven't got any problem with integrity of either a tenon or a mortise on a bowl. I hope that answers your question. Dave Rothwell, I use the Ryobi 18V cordless glue gun. It works a treat. Yeah, I'm sure it will. Yeah, as long as you get that glue. The most important thing is obviously a quality glue if you're doing a glue chuck thing. I've done a couple of videos on glue chucks and proved the point. I have actually never had a glue joint break. I've had the wood break, but I've never had the glue joint break. So that is testament to it. But a good quality glue gun, get the glue as hot as it will get, it's running like lava, and let it dry properly or cure properly. And in cold weather, William Hunt gave me this idea, good idea too. In cold weather, just use a heat gun to heat the wood up. before you put the glue on, because the glue will dry too quickly and it gives it a chance then to get in just under the surface and really give a good hold. Richard Phelan, so I heard Tommy looking forward to getting it right. Shay, BB Woodturning Mike, do you agree that an end grain bowl should always be a tenon? Yes, I would, actually. Yes, I would. Because with, yeah, if you're doing an end grain bowl, definitely a tenon. Yes, definitely. I agree. We agree on something, Shay. Douglas Munger, Mike, when would a 1.5 inch roughing gouge be used, as I have seen them used in log turning to bowls? 1.5 inch, yeah. Basically, somebody once said, use the biggest tool you've got to get the job done. I'm not sure I totally agree with that. I mean, mine's 1.25 inches, I think, and that's the only one I use. Whether it's a small black, well, I can use a bowl, sometimes use a bowl gouge to round off a blank, but I will use that for big and small jobs. You only need one, really. So whatever one you've got, use it all the time. That's my advice. Wow, I could turn an axle for 5-ton lorry with that monster. I use the Sorby, it's awesome. Good. Mike, I hope you had a great holiday. Yes, I did, Neil. Thank you very much indeed. Neil's asking if I had a good holiday. Yes, I did. Brilliant. Do you use special fixings to turn Greenwood? BAW Bryce Artwood. Do I use special fixings to turn Greenwood? I normally don't use special fixings. What I do with Greenwood, I'll either use a faceplate, but what I would normally do if I'm turning a bowl, a green bowl, I will put it between centres to begin with, depending how big it is, or a faceplate, turn a tenon and rough turn the outside, and that is my fixing would be a mortise, a tenon, sorry, for wet wood. That's my opinion, because 9 times out of 10 when you go to finish turn it, that tenon has gone oval, and if it's a mortise it would have gone oval. I always use a tenon, and then you just true that tenon up and carry on finish turning it. So in answer to the question, a bit long-winded, yes, if it's wet wood, if it's a wet bowl or even a spindle, I would use a tenon as my method of fixing. That's very true, the Dutch turn. It's not the size of the tool that counts. You're very, very true. I know it's amazing, Jennifer. And I am very, very humbled by it, because it's not a turning video. It's only a questions and answers, but I just felt, I'm going to ramble a bit now, I felt it might be an idea to do it this way, whereas the newer turner can come along and learn a few things and ask some people who've got more experience, and quite a lot of people on here have got more experience than I have. Mike, you might warn against the dangers of using a spindle roughing gouge on a bowl. Yes, I could. Not really for this particular subject, but I quite agree. Mike Peace has said to warn against the dangers of using a spindle roughing gouge on a bowl. There's a simple rule. Some people disagree. If they do, I really don't care. They're idiots. You never let a spindle roughing gouge go anywhere near a bowl. End of story. Someone said to me, well, surely you can true up the edge. Well, why would you want to? Because you true up the edge with your bowl gouge. Why do you want to pick up a spindle roughing gouge and then pick up your bowl gouge to turn the bowl? The bowl gouge will do everything you need to do with a bowl, but a spindle roughing gouge hasn't got the integrity. It's got a narrow tang. The tang on it is very narrow. I mean, this is 1.25 inches, and it's a big boy, but I still wouldn't touch a bowl with it. You've got a very, very weak tang. It is not designed for the forces that are exerted on a tool with a bowl. It is for spindle turning only. You've got me on there, Mike. You got me on my soapbox. But yes, thank you for bringing it up. That question about the roughing gouge mentioned bowl, and it should never be used on a bowl. Fred Taylor said that as well. Yeah, good one, Fred. Fred and Mike have reminded me to say that a spindle roughing gouge should never be used on a bowl. What is the best way? Philipping Enslin. Thank you, CA. That is so kind of you. I appreciate it. What is the best way to remove workpiece from a glue block? Heat gun. There are several ways. I tend to use a chisel. Carefully, just knock around the edge and it comes away. If it's a bit more reluctant to come away, then yes, you can heat the glue up as well. Steve Robbins, don't forget the thumbs down, you mean, Steve. For those of you who didn't know, I think I beat my own world record. I got a thumbs down 2 days before I even started this live. Dave Rothwell, you are an absolute star. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Paul Lockwood, can you comment on your lathe changes? I can understand a massive change for the hobby to trade in noise, features and weight. Further upgrades, I'm guessing, are down to preferences. Basically, Paul, yeah, down to preferences. The 3 lathes I've had, including the Axminster, well, the 4 I've had actually, but there we go. Yeah, it's purely down to preference, and I wanted to do it before I retired, because I wouldn't be able to do it then. Will I be doing a video on how to hold tools? I always use pens, but I get confused now to hold the tools. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, I thought you meant on a tool rack. Yeah, I have done videos on that actually, on tool presentation, as there are many more as well, Jennifer. I doubt if I do a live on it, to be honest with you. I could do, if enough people asked, I could do a live on it. Wayne Bigfoot Woodcraft, Philippines Shoeing, my experience dynamic because I always used too much glue. Yeah, right, let's have a catch up. James, Mike, if I were ever in Somerset, you can always visit our workshop. You'll be welcome. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. It's very unlikely I'd come to Somerset, actually. My ex-wife comes from there, from Withypool. You might know it. Yes, Steve, you might be right there, mate. You might be right. With the exception of the Clark, whatever lathe you have is good. Listen, what Pete said there is true. Whatever lathe you've got is, look, it turns wood. It's preferences. I mean, you know, you can go to the shops, you can walk to the shops, you can go on a bike, you can go in a Mini, you can go in a clapped out van, you can go in a Rolls Royce. You'll still make the journey. And it depends. There is absolutely nothing that doesn't turn wood isn't good enough, if you see what I mean. If it turns wood, it's great. It's just a matter of preference, and if you can get one slightly better, then you do. I'll ignore that comment, John Mooney. Where are you in Somerset, James? Right. Chris Charlton, Pete, I have a Clark lathe. Chris Charlton, you've got a Clark lathe. I've never had experience. People ask me quite often what lathe, best lathe. I've only had experience with Axminster and Stratos. I haven't had a record, nothing. So I can't really comment. It's like chucks. You can get very cheap chucks on the internet as well, and sometimes people swear by them because they've been lucky. You get what you pay for, basically. Mostly. All right, okay, James. Point taken. Nigel, I feel like, Mike, do you use a meter to check? Yes, I do. Or wood. If you do, is it important or for it to be accurate or not? It's relative. I mean, I've assumed mine is accurate, and it seems to be. I mean, we're not talking sort of finite measurements here. As long as my wood is between 8 and 12, for my workshop, my environment, that's about fine. If it's showing 20, I don't really care if it's 25 or 22. It's too wet to turn for a dry turning. So that's how I measure it. I mean, I got used to my meter now, and it does my job. It might be a few percent out, but it doesn't really matter. It just tells me if wood is wet. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't tell you how wet it is in the middle. or mine doesn't, because it's not that sophisticated. It's only the surface, but it gives you a fair idea. Right, let's go back. James Cassidy, Mike, have recently come across two turners that have been turning for over a year and they do not know know about jaw size holding, which is a little unsettling. Yeah, James, I agree, it is. Again, not wishing to be rude to anybody, but possibly people don't think about it. But if you have a situation of 4 points of contact with 8 points of contact with 4 jaws, and then 4 points of contact with 4 jaws, then maybe something should tell you that that is the right way to do it, and the jaws look as they should be, and not sort of like this, you know, hanging on for grim death. But it's not always obvious unless someone points it out to you, I suppose. Again, Derek Sadler says, what are the best chisels for a beginner? That again, you ask 10 wood turners that question, you get 13 different answers. My advice is to go for not a cheap, but a reasonably priced set of tools to begin with, because it covers, you'll be able to do 95% of your turning with those. I've still got a couple of chisels I bought 8 years ago with my first set, and I still use them occasionally. That is either that, speak to somebody who has been turning for a while and they will give you the lowdown on the chisels, the minimum chisels that you need, and you might get on eBay, you get some very good on, or Craigslist in America. There are some good deals to be had there as well, it depends. But you basically will be given a 3/8 bowl gouge, a 3/8 spindle gouge, a scraper, a skew chisel. Unfortunately, an oval skew, in my opinion, shouldn't be in there. It should be an ordinary skew, and a spindle roughing gouge, and there will be one other, and I can't think, and a parting tool. And basically, those 6 tools will cover your wood turning needs, in my opinion. The rest of it is just being a tool junkie, and the other thing is that all of a sudden you think, oh, I need that tool, I need this tool. I have actually sold more tools than I've got here over the years. I've sold them to buy what I think I need, and finally I've got to, well, even now I've got tools I don't really need. But it's surprising, and you can make your own as well. A lot of people make their own. Right, Michael McGarvey, one of the cheapest worst lays out there, but it spins wood, and Mike has told me the tools in my hand are more important. I agree. I've learnt more. Oh, right, this is going back a bit. Oh, thank you. Mike Peace, Woodturning, who's been turning for a lot longer than me, agrees that a starter set is a good way to go for a beginner. I seriously believe that is. It's one of the things that I did when I started turning that I never regret. 95% of all the other stuff I bought and done I do regret. Wish I knew then what I know now. But the starter set is a very good, as it is, a starter set. Because what the starter set will do, as you get more experience, you'll realise that maybe you need another tool for a specific job because you've gone that particular direction. But experience will tell you when something is inadequate, and then you get something to fill that void. One thing I have to say, I am so pleased that I've got some experience on here as well, because obviously I can't, unfortunately, keep track of all the chat. I keep losing it. But there are guys on here that are answering questions as we're going, so I am really pleased it's going the way it is, because it's a job done as far as I'm concerned. It's having the desired effect. It's giving you newer turners out there, or even more experienced turners who may have a question, and the answers are coming from people who know. Notice they're not coming from me, because I don't know much. Steve Jeremiah, out of curiosity, do you think oval skews are not worth having? Steve Jeremiah asked me whether I think an oval skew is worth having. In my personal opinion, no. But that's a personal opinion. There are guys out there that would not have anything said against them. It's like a lot of anything to do with wood turning. A lot of it is personal preference. I personally don't like oval skews. This is personal. Yeah, Leona Fay is saying Crown hand tools starter set is very good. Record Power, Axminster, Crown, all do starter sets, and they're all good quality. Martin has asked me, what is my biggest wood turning tool? Do you mean longest? I think my longest is the 6mm Pro Carbide. That's the longest one, I think. Yeah, I should think so. Hollowing tool. See, Mike Peace has come again. See, Mike by name, Mike by nature. Mike doesn't like the oval skew either. I think one of the main problems with the oval skew is sharpening it. But having said that, again, I don't use a standard grind skew either. I prefer a slight radius on mine because I'm a bit of a coward. But it's personal preference, you know. It's I'm just reading what Steve Robbins is saying. Oh dear. Learn how to sharpen with the cheaper tools. Yes, Jim None of us is saying that the other thing about getting a cheaper set of tools is that you could learn your sharpening. I mean, God knows how many tools I went through when I was learning to sharpen. I wish I'd spent the time to hand sharpen, actually, to be able to freehand sharpen, but I now have. Miss T, I would offer one word of advice on tools, that it's never buy cheap, always get the best you can afford. Yes, I'd agree with that as well, T. To a point, when you start off, it's difficult. When you start off, you do tend to sharpen the hell out of everything. So maybe a cheaper set of tools is a good way to go, but I don't know. An inexpensive starter set is great because you always have to learn how to sharpen your chisels. Mucking up 150 gouges. No, I agree. That is very true. Dave Rothwell is saying there that when it depends what you like. You know, if you want to find out how to do things, you're going to be experimenting, and you don't want to go experimenting on a very expensive top-end tool, because you'll still get rid of the steel. Believe you me, I know. Do you prefer, this is going back a bit, Nigel, do I prefer Slazenger or other tennis balls for goblet making? Actually, I need a goal net, Nigel, for that. I tell you what, there we are, look, it's a head tennis ball. It's one I found in the park years ago. And this one is the one I actually was given by somebody, which is a no-name tennis ball. I'll second that. Joseph King has said hi to Mike Peace and thanks for the great videos, and I would second that. A man of much experience. Have I caught up? Yes, I have. I think Michael McGann, mine started out straight, but I suck at sharpening, so now it has a slight radius too. Don't worry about it. Get used to it. I do, with the radius skew. Derek, I freehand sharpen. Freehand sharpening takes a little practice, but I can sharpen a chisel fast as no setting up jigs and the like is needed. Derek from DL Wood Art, freehand sharpens. Honestly, Derek, I totally agree with you. I've set out with some cheap gouges with no flute left, and I've started, and it ends up like a penknife. But I need some practice, and I need somebody to show me how to do it. I'm not even going to answer that, Mark, and I hope nobody else sees it either. Oh, Martin, please don't send me tennis balls. I've got two, and they've lasted me 7 years. Oh dear, oh dear. Mike, have you done a video on how to make a spindle support? I made a depth gauge yesterday. Yes, I have. I actually got the idea from, I can't remember, but I did my own take on it. But yes, I have done a quite in-depth video on making a spindle steady. Yes. Oh, you found that funny, Leona, did you? Mark's comment. Neil Gould, Mike, does the Hope negative rake scraper come with a handle? No. Or do you have to purchase the handle as well? Yes, you do. Oh, hang on. No, it might do. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. If you go on the website, it will tell you. I am not sure. I don't think it does. Edward Watling, hi, what is the best way to remove a bowl tenon? Well, there are several ways, Edward. I did go in it earlier on. You can either use a set of button jaws, and I've got the photo there, where you actually reverse the bowl and either in compression or in expansion mode, you hold your bowl to turn off the tenon. Or the other way to do it is to use a friction drive. You put that into your headstock. All this is a fits on the spindle. I just put some threads in there, hot glued a piece of wood, got some shelf matting underneath, and that goes in the headstock, and that acts as a friction drive, because you bring your tailstock up onto your piece, onto the bowl, and you can turn your bowl, turn the foot off your bowl. There are several ways of doing it, a vacuum chuck or indeed a jam chuck for a bowl, which I've never used, but there are some videos on YouTube which will tell you how to do that as well. So there are several ways of removing the foot if you should so wish. A good point Fred Taylor makes is if you contact your local woodturning club, there may be tools and other equipment available for sale, or advice you when someone could advise you when some become available. That is a very good point. Thank you, Fred. Derek, in answer to your question, when Ed can receive, let me put it that way. Hopefully, it all depends how this lockdown goes again now, because we could be going for another national lockdown. But we'll see. As soon as I can, I will be down there, and I'll let you know, or he'll let you know, and I'd like to meet you anyway. Got a few things to say to you. Oh dear. Mark the German Woodturner, depends which model Holloway you buy. Some do, some don't. Oh, it does it? Thank you. Simon Hopes, it does. Simon Hopes does come with a handle. I would assume that would be a grub screwed handle, yeah. Thank you, Steve. I couldn't remember. Best way to use a skew is get someone else. James Wessex has said, Mike, I still find the best way to use a skew is to get someone else to do it. Okay, I'm not even going to comment on that, but I agree. No, I don't. I mean, it's... Yeah. I'm going to make it along with Chuck, Paul. Oh, nice, Chris. Yeah, that's great. Do you consider cheating if you use a saw and sander to remove my foot? No. There's no such thing as cheating. If you can get the job done, Michael, I said on previous videos and other lives as well, nobody really cares how you got to the end result. It's the end result that counts. Unless you're another woodturner, no one's going to ask you how you did that. If it works for you, it's the right way to do it. That's the way I say it. That's what I think. If you can't find a nut to fit the lathe to make a friction pad and chuck, then turn a tenon and fit it in the chuck. Yeah, exactly, Derek. That's what I actually showed earlier on, actually. Can't find it now. There you go. That's what that's a glue block, and I showed it. That just fits into the jaws of the chuck, and there is your glue block. And when it gets a bit thin, you can glue another bit of wood on, or turn another bit of wood with a... One thing I would advise though is that you turn it end grain, have end grain on the glue block. That's my personal preference. Skew Defence League, they have a bad rep they don't deserve. I love using a skew, love the finish they leave. Pete, I don't think it's ever in question that the skew... Why does Steve Jones use a skew chisel? Not because he wants people to say, look what a clever man I am, it's because it's the most effective tool in his toolbox. He's had 30 years experience, that's great. Pete, you've had a lot of experience with a skew, brilliant. I can use the Skew to a point. I'm not comfortable with it because I don't use it often enough, but it's undoubtedly one of the most versatile tools in the toolbox. I'll agree with you, and the finish is second to none when you get it right. Dutch Turner actually used a Skew on my finial and survived. Might start giving classes now. The Skew, it's certainly worth persevering with the Skew, because it's a very satisfying tool to use when it goes right. You should like to love the Skew, but it hates me. I've been following your videos and your advice works for me. Thanks, Mike. Mark, that's very kind of you. Thank you. You obviously haven't asked anybody else then. Oh dear. James Wesley Technical, as they say in the gun world, it's not the butt behind the nut. Yeah, I agree. I used to do a lot of clay pigeon shooting actually, James, and I've had some nuts in front of me come out with a with a semi-auto and come out of the cage because it's jammed and they're pointing at your feet. Not fun. Not fun at all. He was escorted off the shooting ground very quickly, I can assure you. Okay, Leona, that's great, mate. Thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks very much. You take care, my love. Thanks for coming. Fred Taylor, the most important thing with a Skew is to use only the bottom half and the short point. On the short point, yes. Well, the bottom third, I'd say. Yeah, I'd agree. Right, guys and girls, I don't know. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll hang about and chat till 9 o'clock. And if there aren't any... Hello, Farmer. How are you? I don't know if there are any more questions. Steve Robbins, Mark, I think Mike's videos are brilliant. I've learned so much. Thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate it. Michael, I don't drink and Skew. No, you shouldn't drink and do anything in actual fact with regards to the old lathe. Right, just going to go on to the break because good night, Ken. Thanks very much. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, James. Glad you enjoyed it. No, the pleasure's always mine, James. You take care. Yes, I did, Terry Bray. Thank you very much. We always do. Bit boring. It's 15th year up there now. I'll tell you what, though, as an aside, it has never been as busy. I was amazed. Absolutely amazed. Good night, Bram. You take care, mate. Give my love to the missus. Derek, well, I don't. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate that. Thank you, Farmer. Great pleasure. Thanks, Bailey. Thank you, Dutch. Appreciate it. Oh, hang on a minute. There's a question. Hang on. Ooh, let's go back. It's too quick for me. I'm an old man. I can't do things quickly. I've lost it now. Mike, maybe on the next Q&A you could cover how to spot grain direction, how to handle it. Yeah, I could do. Indeed. Good, that's good to hear, Leroy. Martin Skew, for example, on your YouTube for Alan Lacer and John Lucas. Yeah, totally agree. Alan Lacer, John Lucas, absolutely. Well, John Lucas was one of the first guys I watched because there weren't that many people doing YouTube videos on woodturning when I started. And John Lucas, absolutely brilliant teacher. James, enjoy. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you, John Mooney. You are a gentleman, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Whoops, hang on. John M. In regard to woodwind screws, what do you think the maximum diameter of weight of the blank can be? I'd be honest with you, I don't use woodworm screws that often, I have to be honest. I tend to go for face plates or glue blocks. I couldn't answer that question. I'd say not too heavy, because you've only got one point of contact, and that's the screw. Thank you, Nick Castle. You're most probably gone now because I'm a bit behind. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, Dutch. I appreciate it. You take care and good night. And Daily, how important is speed, RPM, when turning wet dry wood? Speed is always important. I have actually got a video on the need for speed, what speeds to use. All I'd say is the speed is important whatever you're turning. It is relative to the blank you're turning and the wood you're turning to. Too much for an answer for tonight, to answer tonight, but there are lots and lots of videos on that subject. Not just from me, from other turners on YouTube. Might be worth having a look. Brian, thank you, Brian, and Michael as well. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. It's very, very kind of you. Darren Coombs. Well, that's why it's been a short video, Darren. There's not a lot of knowledge to share, is it, really? Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you, T. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. Always appreciate you coming. Thank you, Nick Murphy. Thank you very much. Richard Phelan, thank you very much indeed for coming. Take care. Steve Jeremiah, what jaws do I use for very small finial work, Mike? I use these normally. Those little cylinder jaws, goes down onto a nice little blank, and it's away from the chuck. You can, I also have I use these for years. This is an answer to Steve. These are the small gripper jaws, which are serrated inside and outside, and they're good for hanging onto small blanks as well. But actually, the medium gripper jaws, I don't know if you can see there, they're actually serrated on the inside there as well. So you could use those, but you can't go back too far. So if it's coming out here, I've never used that really. But it is a possibility. Derek, thanks very much. You take care. Cheers. Douglas Mungham, Mike, is an SM4 chuck okay? I don't know what an SM4 chuck is, I'm afraid, Douglas. Okay, Leroy, I'll accept that. Joseph King, my longest hollowing tools are 38.5 inches. Wow, they are long, Joseph. Mike, thanks for the good info. Thank you, Martin. Glad you enjoyed it. You take care. Nigel, you are too kind. Thank you, sir. You're a gentleman. I really appreciate it. Paul Smith. Hello, Paul. I went to Axman's Tools yesterday and bought a Craft AC air filter reduced. Good grief. That was a good deal, wasn't it? Wow. Oh, take it back if it's got a dent in it, Paul. I would. That was a good deal, mate. Well done. Thank you, Derek Sadler. Leroy, do you keep truck sets up just for one task? Not necessarily, no. But over the years, I have acquired quite a lot of different jaws and things. But to begin with, I'll be honest with you, I think the best set of jaws I've had, all-rounders, are the C jaws. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, they do virtually all you want. Mike, so what juice do you vape? I use, I can't remember. I think it's called Blaster. It's basically Golden Virginia. It's rolling tobacco, and the make is Blast. It's called Blast, B-L-A-S-T. I've used it for years, and I've started on the 24 milligram, and I'm on 12 now. Dave Leroy, I would agree. The worm screw is the only part of my Nova kit that I don't use. I very rarely use the worm screw, I must be honest. But it is an option. Steve Jeremiah, fancy a Simon Hope negative rate scraper, the round one, but looks a bit bugger to sharpen. To be honest with you, Steve, the round one is more of a bugger than the other one. Purely and simply because it's round. But you can hone it. I have done a video on it actually, but it's easy to hone with a diamond hone, but obviously after a while you have to take it to the grinder or to your belt because you'll be honing and it'll come out a round. But at the end of the day it doesn't really matter because it does the job. Steve J, they're easy to sharpen, there are vids on YouTube that show it. Yeah, one of them's mine actually. Only joking, but yeah, there are. They're not difficult to sharpen because you don't need to sharpen them each time. You just need to hone them. Just raise the burr on them because they are scrapers at the end of the day. Good night, John Mooney. Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. Oh, the SC4. Yes, Douglas. As far as I'm aware, they're excellent chucks. I've never had one, but I know people that swear by them. Again, it's a very personal thing. I've only used Axminster chucks from day one, really, in honesty. The SC4 chucks are excellent chucks, so I'm led to believe, and I've got no reason to doubt it. You know, Mike Peace has said the Record Power SC4 is a great chuck and better than the Nova SN2. There you go. There is a guy who has got a lot of experience and obviously a lot of chucks as well. White piece. Steve, maybe I'll get to Simon to show me. Yeah, Steve, he will. I think actually Simon's got a video on it as well. I'm not sure. Not that it is as good as mine, of course, but hello, Florida beaded fisherman. Just made it. Got about 5 minutes left, I think, and I'll be signing off. And thank you very much for taking the effort. I appreciate it. Yeah, talking about the Record Power, the SC4. I have only ever heard good reports about them. The thing is, once you go with a manufacturer, things like jaws, etc., when you maybe get another chuck or get a better chuck from the range, the jaws tend to fit the same manufacturer. So, or the jaw carriers do anyway. So you tend to stick with the same manufacturer once you start. Mark, the gentleman, what was the name of the Skew guy again, please? Sorry? What was the name of the Skew guy again? You don't mean Steve Jones, do you, Mark? Surely. Everybody knows Steve Jones. Yeah, Steve Jones. P.L. Woodturning, hi all. Sorry you've come at the end. Yes, we have a bit of a celebrity in our midst. Mr. Mike Peace. Steve, just going, I have 5 Nova G3s, a Supernova and Robert Sorby Patriot. Never had an issue with them. I shouldn't think so. 7 chucks? That's disgraceful, Joseph. Absolutely disgraceful. Far too many. I think I got too many and I got 5. Right, Massivo, hi there, I need a dust mask for carpentry, but I don't know what a clean shaven as a beard. Does it just be poker? Yes, it is. Oh, there it is. Massive O. I've used, well, this is an evolution from Axminster, but I've used it's still made by GSP. Brilliant. Works on positive pressure. Again, I'm not plugging my videos. I think the last actual video I did, not alive, was on that, and go through all the details of it. Excellent bit of kit, really good, especially if you've got a beard, because you can't make a seal with a mask. Oh, on YouTube. Oh God. Oh. Oh, there was a guy. I can't think. I think American Italian. Jake. His first name was Jake, I think. Mark. I can't think of his second name. But he's got, so if you put Jake in, hopefully it'll come up. Skew Master, I used to call him. He doesn't do videos now. I think he's a cabinet maker by trade, but he was good with the skew as well. Yeah, Steve Jones is one of the best in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. There are Alan Lacer, and there are other people, of course, that use the skew. But I mean, one of the finest teachers, in my opinion, who's unfortunately passed now, excuse me, was Alan Batty, Stuart Batty's father. I mean, Stuart Batty lives in America now, and he teaches and demonstrates, but his father, Alan, he has actually got a superb video on the skew chisel. If you put in Alan Batty, it'll come up on YouTube. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant, man. So look for Taylor, Alan Lacer, John Lucas, yeah, and John Lucas as well. Bit dim, remember. I think Jake Gavorgian. Jake Gavorgian, I think, Mark. That was his name. That's the guy I'm thinking of, anyway. Yes, he does, Mike. He does rock with the skew, that's for sure. Thanks, Fred. Yeah, Alan Lacer and John C. Lucas. The video's on YouTube. Mr. Walt, you are a font of knowledge. Not really. Thank you for your YouTube videos. Douglas Mungham, you're very kind. Thank you. With me, a lot of the time, it's I know what to do, but don't do it myself all the time. So it's do as I say, not as I do. But if I can pass on knowledge that I've gained from other turners, I'm only so happy. That's what I'm here for, basically. Yes, Colwyn Way as well. He's got some superb videos on skew chisel, and he's a lovely fella too. My first teachers made me learn the skew before I was allowed anything else. Pete, that's what happened to Steve Jones as well. His granddad, when he was about 13, I think. And that's the thing. Not wishing to go off on one about the skew, essentially, but people say, oh, you know, makes it look so easy. You spend hours and hours and hours and hours doing something, you will become proficient at it, and it needs practice. I think the thing with the skew, it needs more practice than the gouge, and you initially will get more catches with it. It's frightening, so you put it back on, then don't bother again. That's the main reason, I think. Which multi-head live revolving centre do I recommend? Brian Deacon. Are you in the UK, Brian? If you're in the UK, Axminster do a really good one. I was very, very honoured to have a one-way sent to me by a subscriber of mine about 3 or 4 years ago. So I actually boast two. But the Axminster do a very good one as well. But those are the only two I know of. I know one way does one, which is the one I've got, and the Axminster. I'm sure there are others out there, but those are the two prominent ones that I use. Brian Deacon, which multi-head light? Sorry, that was directed at you, Brian. I hope that answers your question. Yes, Martin says, gentle turn, take a month and work only with a skew. Yeah, exactly. That's the only way you're going to learn. That's very kind of you, Mr. Mountain Pipes. I am humbled by that comment. Thank you, sir. You have me making boxes. You have shown me so much. I'm glad that my videos are of use to you, Mr. Florida Bearded Fisherman, and I'm awfully sorry you did tell me your name and I can't remember it, and I put it down to my age. Okay, Mike Peace is saying he likes the technical live center system for versatility. There's another one. The big thing with this sort of live center system is that you can have a lot of accessories. You can make your own accessories and chase threads. So they do give you a lot of versatility. I mean, this is the Axminster one, and that is the one way. Very similar in design, different screw threads, and in fact the live center that came with my Stratos XL, that has a removable live center as well, revealing a screw for adding accessories to. Leroy, Mike, your voice always been thank you, Leroy. As I say, it's not everything is my opinion, and it just gives people food for thought to make an informed decision, basically. Counting on your age to get away with making some videos and not having you chase me for royalties. I'd never do that, Pete. Never, if it was me you were talking to. Good night, Douglas. Always a great pleasure. Thank you very much for coming. When are you coming to the US to demonstrate, says PF Woodturning? Well, never. I don't think I'll ever get over to the US, to be honest with you, Mr. PF. But depending on my work situation, I think in the future a possibility would be like IRDs, as they call them, interactive remote demonstrations on Zoom with clubs. That is one way I could come over to the States, I suppose. Chisky Wood Creations, the technical live is very versatile, Mike. Yeah, it's something I've never used, but I think all the live centers that have the option of fitting accessories on are really good bits of kit. Good night, Paul. Thank you very much indeed. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for turning up. I do. Florida Bearded Fisherman is asking, do us guys document your turnings like photos or logs? Mainly Facebook groups on Facebook. That's the only. Me personally, I mean, people use Instagram, Etsy, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much, Shax. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for turning up. I appreciate it. Most of the ideas I have, you already made a video working on 6V turntable base. Pete, there, nobody has a, whoops, there's a fly in here, oh dairy. Nobody has a patent on anything. And anything you do is your own take. So everything is different. There's always something to learn from somebody's different, approaching it from a different view. People get annoyed when people copy them. I find, honestly, that is the best form of flattery. That's why nobody ever copies me. Yes, Douglas, I will do. Certainly. Well, I can't do it now, obviously, but I will do it when the video goes on to YouTube. Nigel says, when do you think you'll park the bus up forever and retire, Mike? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Is all I can say on the matter at the moment. All right. I'm still on furlough until the end of October. No, I've only just been informed. Who knows? I might not have a job to go to when all this finishes. I don't know. They might have to make me redundant. I don't know. A couple of years at most, sooner if possible. Does that answer it, Nige? Yeah, you're not wrong there, Mark. You're not wrong there, mate. Okay, J. Mooton Pipes. I'll make a note. Let me get a pen. And I'll pop across and have a look, mate. J. Mooton Pipes. I presume is that your YouTube channel? J. Mooton Pipes, let me know. Take care, Nigel. Thanks very much. You take care. Anabati has 2 YouTube videos that Woodturnings may have missed. Yeah, Brian Deacon, I mentioned Anabati, and yeah, he is, well, he's a master. Unfortunately, he's left us now a few years ago, but yeah, and his son, Stuart, as well. Absolutely superb turner, demonstrator, and teacher. Leroy. Message retracted. I bet you were being nasty to me, weren't you? Right, just going to go to the break for a minute and just have a quick vape off camera. I've been told off for doing that on camera. J. Mooton Pipes, yeah, I've made a note of that. Okay. Jerry Dempsey, hello there. Didn't see you come in. Good evening. Anybody have a lathe older than my 1937 Atlas? I doubt it, Jerry. Thank you, Pete. Thanks for turning in, mate. I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Take care, mate. Look forward to your video. I'm sorry I missed the comments about the live centres and the threads. I'm not familiar with those. Basically, Leroy, that is a live centre with threads, basically. Can you, does it show it? Yeah. Okay, so you've got the live centre and you have attachments, or you can make attachments to go on there with the right threading apparatus. You can make things for it as well. Very handy bits of kit. One way, that's the Axminster one, and One Way do one, and also now, thanks to Workpiece, Technotool do one as well. He's informed me. Well, Joseph said he's got a 1948 Richard Hayden Cadet lathe. Well, it is not as old as 1937. Jerry's got the oldest lathe. You take care. Thanks, Mooton Pipes. Glad you enjoyed it. Thanks very much indeed for coming. And I'll definitely have a look at your video. Take care, PF. Thanks for coming, mate. Appreciate it. Hello, Colin. Didn't know you were there. I missed you. Sorry for that. Thanks very much for coming, and good night to you, sir. Workpiece Woodturning is Mike's YouTube channel. Yes, it is. Sorry, Fred. When I said I won't put it on here, but yeah, okay, you've done it. But I'll put a link on the video when it goes up on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description below to Mike's channel. Dewey Shed, is the power respirator worth buying? I personally would not have been. I've had mine. I've had the same model for 8 years, and I think it's a great investment. Personally, it's my own personal opinion. In conjunction with good dust extraction at the point of generating your dust, and if possible, a good air extractor. I've just got an entry-level air filtration as well. I find it brilliant. That's just me personally, but yes, I'd recommend it. Mike, what is the worst tool you have ever bought and thought, why did I buy that? It's not a case of worst tool, Steve. The biggest waste of money tool I ever bought, I think, was it has to be the captive ring tool, I think. Purely and said nothing wrong with the tool, great tool. I've still got it and I use it occasionally, but I don't use it a lot. But it's one I've hung on to. I actually bought 2, and one of them I've turned into a mushroom undercutting tool. But I think the thing with tools, Steve, is that when you get a bit more experience, when you start, you see a tool and you think, yeah, I'm doing that, I need that, I need this, I need that, and you don't know any different. But in actual fact, you can do most of those jobs with your standard tools. If you do a lot of a specific thing, then yes, sometimes a specialist tool is a good thing to go for. That's my opinion. I mean, I've actually turned captive rings off, as many people have, I'm sure, with bent Allen keys sharpened up. Put an Allen key into a handle and use that. So there are many ways to skin a cat, as they say. Is Jerry as old as his lathe? I don't know, Jim. I can't answer that question. Oval skew? Yeah, I suppose. Actually, yes, most probably the worst tool I've ever used. Actually, I can't say that. It just didn't suit me. It didn't suit me. I just found it too light and a pain to sharpen. Brian Whittier, good afternoon all. Thanks for the question and answer, Mike. Chicago, thank you, Brian Whittier from Chicago. Thanks for popping in. Enjoy the rest of your day, sir. Patrick Bowers, thinking of quitting smoking cigarettes and taking up vaping. Is that your route and did it help? Patrick Bowers, yes. I won't tell you what I used to smoke, but it was a hideous amount. And I have smoked all my life up until 7 years ago. I started vaping and I've had maybe 5 cigarettes since, and each time I've had one of those cigarettes, it's made me wish I hadn't. So yes, I've given up smoking, but I'm still addicted to the nicotine these give off. But as my doctor says, he can't believe how clear my chest is. I was wheezing, I was coughing. Yeah, great. Definitely worked for me. Yeah, you're right there, Steve. Well, it's handbags with my wife, not shoes. She's got more handbags than she can shake a stick at. But yes, Patrick, I can recommend it. The only thing is, if you do videos, you shouldn't do it in public. So I'm just going to go to my when I can find it. There you go. I mean, you know I'm doing it, but you can't see me. Ah, Stuart. Cheers, Mike. Informative and thank you very much indeed. I appreciate it. Thank you, Stuart. You take care, mate. Fred Taylor, you go to shows and see somebody doing something marvellous, yeah, with a tool, you think, oh, yeah. Yes, it is. Fred Taylor has actually hit the nail on the head. It's not, my father, when he was alive, used to say, it's not the car that maketh the man, it's the man that maketh the car. And it's exactly the same with wood turning. I know people, and I won't mention names, but I know people that can turn wood with an axe. They can turn with a spade. If you've got the ability, you can turn with anything. A true craftsman will make the tool he has in his hand sing. I'll say no more than that. But yeah, you're right, Fred. You go to a show or you see something on YouTube or you see somebody and you think, oh yeah, I've got to have that. But I don't know. It is... I'm a tool junkie, I think. That's the problem. I am a tool junkie. Can you see my sticker wall? No. Yes, you can. Hang on. Actually, my sticker wall is not like other sticker walls because I've got tools on it. Hang on a minute. There you go. That is my sticker wall there, look. It's everywhere. It's over there. And it's here, covered. A lot of it's covered by tools. But that's my sticker wall. There we go. Not a lot to see here. Move on. There you go. I'll tell you one thing, lads and lassies. People who are left here, I'm going to get a lot of complaints on YouTube because this has gone on now for, well, it will be 2 hours, I suppose. I'm calling a halt at 9:30, okay? But I enjoy the chat. But I can edit a lot of, I didn't realise until the other day that I can actually edit the front and back of a live stream. So all this will be gone, if I can be bothered to do it. Fred Taylor, it's a learning process. It is, it is. Valerie Henschel, one tool away from greatness. Yeah, that's true. Nigel, maybe Ed Oliver should turn with an axe and see if it helps him keep wood on the lathe. I'm making no comment, Nigel. I love wood turning. How did you get on with a quick session, Mike? Not very well, actually. Not very well. There's been 3/4 of an hour of me talking about something that the subject of the video, and the rest of it has been very, very enjoyable chatter and banter. Fred Taylor, Makers International in a minute. Right, okay, you go and enjoy it, my friend. Thank you, Benjabens. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming, mate. Stephen Ogle. Hello, Stephen. How are you, my friend? Stephen, the famous Stephen Ogle. And you, Stephen, are the guy that I couldn't remember, sorry about this, with regards to the steady rest. It was your design of steady rest that I copied on my video. What a great pleasure to see you, Stephen. Dewey Shed, have you thought of doing it full time, mate? What's that, Dewey? If I was younger, yes, would be the answer. Teaching I love. I say teaching. I love talking and passing on things that I know, if you like. I can't always do what I say to do, but that's not the point. I know what needs to be done, and I really enjoy it. I really do. Thank you, Mr. Bear Woodcraft. Always a pleasure to see you. Good evening, Gareth Silk. You're a bit late. Yeah, I'm going to sign off in 10 minutes, mate. And we're just chatting idly about anything and everything now, which unfortunately these lives tend to end up as. Oh, glad to hear it, Steve. Stephen. Steve or Stephen? Should call you Stephen. I must say to everybody, Stephen Ogle used to do, I'm sure he hasn't got the time to do it now, he used to do some, well, he still does wonderful work, I'm sure, in woodturning, but some great videos, how-to videos, build videos, and he used to make some wonderful stuff, as I'm sure he still does. So I'm honoured that I've had Stephen Ogle, I've had Mike Peace visiting me today, or tonight, and I'm also honoured that everybody else has come as well. Thank you, Leroy. Yes, it is, Klondike, it is. And as you most probably gathered, I do like the sound of my own voice. I love woodturning. Mike, might you cover thread chasing in a Q&A? I don't wish to sound rude, but no, because I've never done thread chasing. Mick Stratton, who was on earlier, he does a lot of thread chasing, but doesn't do videos. The man to look at is Sam Angelo, the Wyoming woodturner, on YouTube. He has got some wonderful instructional videos on thread chasing. But me personally, no. I've always meant to do it, but it's one of those many things that I've never got round to doing. Nigel, thank you, Mike. I'm off to share a bottle of good. Give my love to Alice and Nigel as well. Always great to see you, mate, and thanks very much for coming along. Oh, you're back on the tube, Stephen. Excellent, mate. Well, that's my pleasure. I love woodturning. Stephen, I shall be over sometime in the week and have a look at what you've got on there, mate. Welcome back. Yeah, you're right there, Joseph. Shovel turning, another plug for Steve Jones. Yeah, I reckon that man could turn with anything. Absolute star he is. Right, chat's gone quiet, which is good. Well, it's not good, but I'll just have another quick vape and keep an eye on the chat. As long as everybody's enjoyed it, that's the main thing. Ah, Dewey Shed, how hard was it getting the wax off your beard? It was not easy, Dewey. It was not easy, and it stung as well. But you got to have a laugh, haven't you? Looked good though, didn't it? Maybe look a bit younger. Good night, Woodturning by Brandstrup. good night, and thank you very much indeed for coming. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. Take care. Oh, Klondike Craftsman saying Stephen's got a new lathe. Oh, I will definitely go across to Steve's channel and have a look. Peak Twisted Tree, always do, Mike. You have the gift of the gift of chat. Keep things going even when turning. That's very nice, you, Peter. I appreciate it. I must admit, I do enjoy myself. And I'll let you do a little secret, everybody that's left. I always get anxious before I come on lives. I don't know what it is. Stage fright, I think. As soon as I get on here, it doesn't bother me at all. I love it. And it's all down to you lot, because a lot of you are regulars, and I really appreciate your support. Yes, I am, Steve. Hopefully. I have to have a word with Mr. Oliver. I know we could talk about this actually on Messenger, Steve, or indeed text, or even phone. But yeah, it's my intention to come down as soon as I can. Thank you, Stephen. Always nice to see you. And I'll definitely be having a look at your videos, mate, and having a look and swooning over your new lathe. You take care, mate. Thanks for coming. Actually, what I'll do, if I do that, all right, then I don't have to put you off. What is Bromley? Oh, sorry, Bromley is an area in the county of Kent in the UK. No, it's not a club. It's where... Oh, I got that wrong, didn't I? God, it's cold in here. Can you see the steam, condensation coming out of my mouth? I love woodturning. Bromley is where Mr. Oliver is around. Not Mr. Oliver, sorry. Simon Hope is around that area. So hopefully I'm going down for a day to see Simon. Gareth Silk, I'm thinking of getting a set of coal jaws for reversing my bowls to turn off the tenon. Any advice? I have the SK100. Well, the button jaws from Axminster, Gareth. I've got them. I've got them for they're the bigger ones, but it depends on the. I think you can get the smaller button jaws. If you turn all the bowls, they're great, but consider alternative methods as well, friction drive, etc., etc. But if you turn a lot of bowls, then they are an option. Oh, Essex. Bromley is Ed, is it? Sorry. Steve. Oh, yes, it's Ed, isn't it? Yes, Ed. Ed. Ed Oliver. Is that Chad? Is it? Yeah, that's... Yes, Bromley. The answer is yes, Steve. I'm thinking of just having to organise it. Lenny, well, I missed you again. Cut my grass and just got back, but I can watch the replay. Yes, it's a bit long-winded, Lenny. The actual informative stuff didn't take that long. No, not too bad, right, Escape. Thank you. It's not too cold here. It's about 23 degrees at the moment, which is quite nice. Hello from Arizona. Hello, Lennon. Thanks for coming in, albeit late, all the way from Arizona. That's much appreciated. Terry Bray, a question, Mike. What camera system are you using and program to run them, please? I'm using, for the live streams, I use 3 Logitech C120s, I think they are. And they're brilliant. Full HD, etc. And I use OBS as the software. And that works pretty well. Hopefully you can see that. Works pretty well with YouTube. And Zoom, indeed, as well, OBS. So yes, I use 3 C120s. And when I do my ordinary videos, I also use my Panasonic video camera. And I could set that up on here as well, but I'm reluctant to spend the money to get the encoder. I don't really need it for the lives. Dave Rothwell, I'll have to send you the link to the upcoming Commonwealth Table Skittles competition. I've almost finished a new set of pins, matches between England and Canada and Australia. Yeah, you must do that, Dave. I'll enjoy watching that. Mark Stevens, hi from Australia, and hi from Bedfordshire, UK, Mark. Thanks for coming in, mate. Terry Bray, the picture is perfect. Yeah, the picture's not good. The subject matter of the picture's not that good because I'm on it, but the actual quality of the cameras is brilliant. And you do have some settings that you can alter, like manual focus, which is a must if you're close in on spinning wood. You must have manual focus. I suppose the only downside, the audio, yeah. Do you know what? I spent quite a bit of money in the early days of videoing with wireless lavalier mics, and I've got it cost me I think it was £10 UK for a USB, because there's no batteries, it works off the computer. Okay, it's wired, but I only use it when I'm 6 foot length. I can go further if I want to, and it's absolutely superb for £10. But the other boyers were not expensive, but they were considerably more than that. All right, okay, OBS. Dave Rothwell using OBS for the match. Yeah, it's great. Andy Clanettley, how are you? Thanks for glad you enjoyed it, Andy. Thanks for coming, mate. Appreciate it. Actually, Pete, I went for a Stream Deck. I actually got a Stream Deck because I couldn't wait for the Wi-Fi situation. I still want Wi-Fi in the workshop, but it's not essential. And I must be honest, I'm over the moon with a Stream Deck. I use it for a lot of other things apart from the live streaming as well. It is so programmable, but thank you very much for the offer. I do appreciate it. And when you say it's a no-brainer, well, you know I haven't got a brain, so it doesn't apply to me. Oh dear. No, I haven't got money to burn, Pete. Not at all. What I dedicated myself to do is to get the best I can possibly do, because the content and the presenter are rubbish. So if the equipment's good, then at least they get good quality rubbish. Do you know what I mean? That's the way I look at it. But I do desperately want to get Wi-Fi set up down here. So maybe, Pete, we could have a Zoom meeting one day in the next couple of weeks, and you could run me through it. I'd appreciate that if you could. Yes, it is true, Lenny. If yes. I don't know if you heard what I asked, Pete, but oh, that's great, Pete. Okay, yeah, maybe week after next, because I've got to go down to Hampshire, pick my wife up. She's visiting a friend, and unfortunately lost her husband 4 weeks ago. Dave Stephen, hi Mike. I'm waiting for my Hope Carbide hollowing tools to be delivered tomorrow. Nice one, Dave. Do you have any tips for somebody starting out with boxes? I've got a lot of tips actually, and this sounds again very conceited. I don't mean to sound it. I've got a video on turning boxes, which I made many years ago, but it's still relevant today. And there are a lot of good videos on YouTube, but if you search lidded box, I do try and go through all the sequences that I use to turn a lidded box. But you'll enjoy those carbide tools. You got is it the mini carbide as you get in, Dave? Okay, Pete, I will take you up on that. Oh, it's all right, Lenny. It's well, I say it's all right. He didn't suffer. That's the main thing. But yeah, my wife and his wife have known each other for many, many years. That's very kind of you, Lenny. Thank you. Compared to what? Oh dear. I don't know, sometimes my brain thinks of things and it comes straight out, and it shouldn't really, but I am sarcastic. It's all done in good fun, and I mean no harm to anybody, I assure you. And you're going to go to the break. It's gone 9:30 and I'm still here, and there are still 136 people watching, and I don't care what YouTube viewers say. It's going to be too long. I'm enjoying myself. Thanks, Lenny. Just going for the break for the reasons you know. Good, I'm glad you do. Yeah, actually, Dave, if it's the minis, excuse me, I actually did a video on them as well when I got them. I did a review of the set, the swan neck and the mini hollower, the 6mm. The box I did years before I got those, but you can bore yourself with the box making video plus the review of the mini hollowers as well. If you've got nothing better to do. The reason I'm hanging on is my wife is not with me tonight. She's away for a couple of days, so I'm just happy to chat. I tell you what would have been a good idea actually, but it would only be 40 minutes. Is cut this and go to a Zoom meeting to have a chat like this now. But it's a bit late for that for everybody, I'm sure. Terry Bray, you make me blush. I will have to. Dave Rothwell, as we are, mate. If we weren't enjoying your company, we wouldn't be here. That's very nice of you, Dave. I bet you've had an argument with Fee, haven't you? Hopefully you can come over next year, Dave. Hopefully. The big problem with this is it's enjoyable chatting, and every now and again people ask a question at this late time of night. But Terry Bray, I asked you several weeks ago which hollower to buy. I got it and it's brilliant. The 6mm Pro. The 6mm Pro, excuse me. Glad you enjoy it, Terry. It's a really versatile bit of kit, and it doesn't have hog some stuff out as well. So I'm glad my recommendation was founded. I'm glad you concur with my thoughts. Yeah. Can't. And proud sponsors of Mike Walt Woodturning. I wish. Diet Coke. Do you know, I used to drink gallons of ordinary Coke years and years ago when I was a big fat boy. After I stopped playing rugby, I used to still drink and eat, and I used to drink and all like I used to when I used to train twice a week. But I luckily got on to Diet Coke, so I don't get the calories. But I am addicted to it. Yes, indeed. No, I appreciate it. I was only joking, Dave. You wouldn't dare argue with Fee. You never argue as long as you agree with what she says. Same as me and Mew. Patrick Bowers, read where Donald Trump drinks a 12-pack of Diet Coke a day. Oh dear, I better stop drinking Diet Coke then, had I? Well, I buy them in cases of 30, and I should think I get through, I don't know, I don't drink that many, but I certainly get through a lot. Maybe half a dozen cans a day. But then again, I'm only half the man that Donald Trump is, you see. How long does medium star bond take to cure to where it can be sanded properly, filling wormholes in a hybrid blank. I don't know about Starbond, but a medium CA, if you're going to start spinning it again, I'd certainly, depends how much you put in, how deep the the wormholes are, etc, etc. 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, depending on the atmosphere. But a good tip that someone gave me actually is when you spin it up, put a bit of cardboard on the lathe bed, stand out of the way, spin it through and see if there's any splashes on the cardboard. If there aren't, then you know it's dry enough to start turning. But beware, if you go fairly deep, sometimes what has cured on top hasn't actually cured in. So if I put a lot of stuff in, I tend to leave it a good half an hour or more. That's just me. And I don't think that the manufacturer is going to make that much difference. If it's a good quality CA, like the one I use and what you're using, Starbond or Tightbond, whatever, I'm sure it's virtually the same. Lenny, horseshit Mike, you are twice the man. No, definitely not intellectually. Well, I can't be, because he's the President of the United States, so he can't be that stupid. I'm thinking of the Hope Mini Hollower. I tend to use spindle, gouge and curve tool for the shoulder for small and the Big Brother system for deep hollowing, but something in the middle is a plan. The Mini Hollower is very versatile. I don't use it all the time, Pete. I tend to like to use all my tools when I can to justify keeping them. But if I'm doing a box or a goblet, I mean goblets for me more than boxes obviously, I will either use a 3/8 spindle gouge or a 1/2 inch spindle gouge or the Mini Hollower. And the Mini Hollower is, it does hog a lot of wood out, and it's great. Once you get the technique right, it sings, it really does. Gareth Silk, where is a good place to buy CA and what types are good for what job, please? There's lots of different CA out there. Pete will most probably jump in here because he's got more experience than me, but I do know that the branded makes, if you like, are more refined, better quality, call it what you will, but hence they're more expensive. I've used cheap stuff off eBay to good effect. I use thin for small hairline cracks and even bigger cracks, so it gets right down as far as it possibly can, and then I normally finish off with medium. But I mix, quite often I'll mix either instant coffee grind, anything like that to give a colour if you want to. You can add colour to it as well, but I only use thin and medium for crack filling. I've started using Milliput now a bit as well for bigger cracks. I know you can use resin, but I'm not using resin at the moment. Well, I don't use resin at all. Yes, it is, Dave. Dave Rothwell is saying that regarding your wife or your partner, one of the very important sayings is, yes, dear. And I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's true, Richard. Richard is saying that if you are going about, when is it dry? Yeah, if you get drips on your cardboard, you've got to fill it again. That is a good point, yeah. HRVGE, what is your opinion about Robert Sorby Pro Edge sharpening set? I can't recommend it highly enough. HRV, if I'd bought it 7 years ago, I would have been a lot happier and a lot richer. It is a brilliant piece of kit. I had a very good CBN setup. I just can't fault it. I used the one way, etc, etc, and I sold that system and I bought the Pro Edge Deluxe and I had money to spare, and it is repeatable, easy, and just a brilliant bit of kit. I can't praise it high enough. I would recommend the Pro Edge to anybody without fear of contradiction. There are a lot of YouTubers have discounts on Starbond if you're in North America. I use Gord Rock's code. All right, fine. Yeah, Starbond is a very good make, obviously. So yes. Yeah. No, as Pete Twisted Tree has just said what I said basically. Various uses need various. He uses a thin from Screwfix. I've used Screwfix stuff. I've used Everbuild off YouTube. I'm currently using Bondlock, which is from Simon Hope, and that's very good as well. I honestly haven't ever used a bad CA. I can't honestly say I have. But everybody's got their preferences, haven't they? You know. The owner say, "You're still going?" Yeah, I'm still going. I'm still going. I'm in the UK. Best makes and places to buy. Currently have a small bottle of Loctite. To be honest with you, if you go on Google, Gareth, see, I mean, I get mine from Simon Hope. Okay, I buy mine from Simon. I bought it from Axminster. I bought it from the Tool Post. Either oh God, what is it? Can't remember now. I think it was Titebond, was it? Yeah, Titebond. I used to use Titebond. Simon's is better value in my opinion. But as Pete says, you can get it, you know, from anywhere really, from eBay even, and there's not a lot of difference. I don't personally think. Should see a large bottle and quick hardener at the range £5. Yeah, I love Woodturning is saying. Should I see a large bottle and quick hardener at the range? Oh, £5. Okay. Yeah. The range being the shop or the store. Yes. Yeah, a good point as well, Pete. Peter's saying if the crack's beyond the thin CA, tends to go for 5-minute epoxy. Exactly. I mean, I use 5-minute epoxy, and Milliput as well. Milliput's a good crack filler if they're big cracks, big voids. Yeah, we're still here, Dutch. Nothing better to do. As Lenny says, tons of selection on Amazon. Really and truly, what I would say is go for a good value and see how it performs, and then you haven't lost anything. But 9 times out of 10 it'll work just as well as anything else. Gareth Sill, thank you all for your help with that. No, that's fine, Gareth. I'm a great believer in trying things out, but of course, you know, the point of things like this is you get a lot of different answers, which is good and gives you food for thought. Klondike Craftsman, I'm in Canada and some of the good products are really hard to find. Chestnut, Mylands and some Hampshire sheen items are difficult. Amazon is an option, but the price is wild. Hampshire sheen shouldn't be a problem because Rob is an agent, isn't he? Rob Summerlin. He does Hampshire sheen. And he's in Canada, so there shouldn't be a problem. Right, I'm going to have a quick drag. So what we'll do, I'll have a photo of a set of button jaws, bowl reversing jaws. There's no music with that, so we'll go with the music. No, it's Summerly Woodturning, but his name is Rob Summerlin. You're too late, Leona. We've already said that. Oh, he might not have the oils. I know he's got the waxes. He does the waxes. I'll tell you what is good now. Not that anybody's interested, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I realised you can actually cut the beginning and the end of these lives. So all this idle chatter will be taken off. I've got the same problem, Leon. I've got 2 fingers I can type with, and then you go back and say, oh God, I got that wrong. And the worst thing is the predictive text, because some words that come out of there and you press send and you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I thought all women could touch type. As he goes off camera again. No, he's not off camera. Nah. Not very professional. Oh, I tell you what I could do. You know, I'll give you an overhead. Look at that. Look, there's overhead. Tailstock. Look, tailstock, tailstock. Picture in picture, which I've never used yet. There's a button jaws again, look. Bit of music. Well, the idea, you see, if you've got to hold on to a drink as well, the owner, you've got the choice. Put the drink down tight faster, or as you have obviously done, tight slow and keep the drink, which I totally agree with. No, it wasn't in the 60s. I'll tell my wife that because she can touch type. Mind you, she types very quickly, but she spends nearly as much time going over errors she's made while she's touch typing. So I just think doing it like that is that's the best way. Oh dear. Yeah, you need switch to vaping. I'll tell you something, Dutch. I used to smoke, believe it or not, going back in my early 20s, 80 to 100 a day. I used to chain smoke from the time I got up. I had a paper shop. Used to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, finish work at 6, and go to bed about 10. And I had a cigarette on the go all the time, even in between meals, while I was eating, everything. Disgusting. Yeah. This technical demo has been brought to you by the Vape Shop, says the Klondike Craftsman. Yeah. Mind you, I know of a few turners that used to smoke on their videos as well, so actually while they were videoing. No, you're not alone, mate. 40 a day, that's no chicken feed. That's what I used to smoke. And I'm not proud of it, believe me. I've been in vaping since 2009, spent 6 months in isolation in hospital, so I want to do something. Works for me. Yeah, you're right there, Pete. Totally. I never thought I would. I never thought I would give up, but I'm so pleased I have. Dave Rothwell, I can type 60 words a minute, but it's all in Martian. Funny enough, I can type Martian, and I can read it as well, Dave. That's the worrying thing. I don't know about you, but I can read my typos. Leon, are you not allowed to show vaping on camera? Yeah, you can, but you know, it does offend some people, and I can understand that. You know, it's looked down upon. Venusian. Yes, that's right. As Lenny said, it's not PC. It's not at the end of the day. I mean, I could turn around and say, look, it's my, it's my video, it's my channel. If you don't like it, fair enough. But I can appreciate some people getting offended by it, so that's fair enough. I find that a bit of an insult. Klondike Craftsman, I think some of my best pieces have been made during your live streams. And all that means is you don't watch them. But it's like having a radio on in the background. You've got this Welshman droning on in the background and you can just ignore me and carry on turning. I do with Ed's live sometimes. If I'm in the workshop, I'll carry on turning as well. That is a loaded compliment, I think, from Klondike Craftsman. Ah, Shay, it's got nothing to do with the internet connection, mate. It's the fact you're in Ireland. You're always 5 minutes behind. And I mean that in the best possible taste. From a Welshman, it's rich, isn't it, saying that? Another reason for me to do lives, I'd offend everyone. No, you wouldn't, Leona. Soft, yeah, the soft. Soft as in stupid, not soft as in dulcet tones. I know what you mean, Klondike. Oh, Dutch, I should say. The Dutch turn, it is Andrew, isn't it? Pete, I was ripping off a Wayne idea while watching him doing a live. I felt guilty. Still did it though. Yeah, good man. Yeah, Wayne would never get offended at that. He would take it as a compliment, as he should do. You're still on the lychee. Oh, God. Steve Jeremiah is saying he's on lychee flavour. Oh, it's Mike, is it? Oh, okay, Mike. Sorry, who's Andrew then? Do you know, I'm terrible. This I wish people would come on here with their names, but then that's just me. Shay's saying he's not 5 minutes behind in Ireland. He's only 4 minutes and 23 seconds. You've improved over the years then. Is that a personal thing, is it? Yeah, Mike is a very common name, Mike. Mike the Dutch turner. And I bet you next time you come on I forget it's Mike. Probably should add you to the video credits, Mike. Yes, you should. Ah, right, okay. This is an east-west thing, is it, Leona? Okay. Oh, Klondike Craftsman, your name is Lewis. Okay, I'll remember it for the next 5 minutes. Listen, folks, it's nearly 5 to 10. I can't believe this. Okay, at 10 o'clock, I'm going to say goodnight. Okay. Lenny, so Mike, I'm sure you have answered this 1,000 times, but would you recommend traditional turning tools or carbide for a fairly new turner? I have both. It's a very personal thing, Lenny. I've got nothing against carbide tools. I use them for hollowing only. I don't use them for turning. They have their place. Being an old, I was going to say fart, can't say old fart on, yes I can, it's my video. Being an old fart, I set myself not a goal of learning, which I still haven't managed, traditional tools, and that's just me. I want to get as proficient I can with traditional tools, but yeah, I've got nothing against carbide. They have their place and they're certainly very effective. I mean, if I was doing a lot of resins and stuff, I think I would be forced to use carbide because they are the best for that sort of turning, but I've still got a lot to learn with traditional tools, and that's just me personally. But yeah, if you've got carbide, use them. At the end, my other analogy always is, it doesn't really matter how you get to the end result you want to get to. It's how you get there is up to you. If it works for you, it's the best tool to use. Oh, Mike the Dutch turner's 1 hour ahead of us. Okay. Oh, that means it's 5 to 11 tonight. No, don't say never mind that question, Lenny. It's important. It really is up to the individual. If you're happy using carbide tools, or happier for a certain job, then use them. There's nothing wrong with it. It's like, well, it really annoys me when people say you can't use a scraper for this, you can't use a scraper for that. It's not done. It's not right. Of course it's right. There's a guy called Reed Gray, Robo Hippie, he's known as, on YouTube. You look at him. That man has made a life's work of scrapers. He's a professional bowl turner, and he uses a scraper. Not a scraper, many scrapers. So, yeah, it doesn't matter what you use. Right, Lenny. Yes, I have the Wolverine. Great bit of kit with wheels, obviously. I mean, I've got the Pro Edge. I'd never go back to wheels and the Wolverine. But yeah, it's a good bit of kit. I'll be in touch to you as well, with you as well, Pete, next week, if that's okay. No opinion. One or the other yet. Not enough experience. Right. Okay. Yeah. Shay, let you look up Doug Thompson on YouTube. He has a brilliant video using the Wolverine. Yes, he has. Thanks, Steve Coombs. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it, mate. Hope to see you again. Yeah, as Leona says, I don't know the question of what, except for a roughing gouge on a bull, don't do that. No, never, ever, ever use a spindle roughing gouge on a bull. End of. You're very, very true. Right, 3 minutes to go, lads and lassies. Worryingly, I could see me here anyway, chatting to myself even till midnight. But that is not going to happen. No, you're right there, Mike. Nor a spindle gouge on a bull. And the only reason for not using a spindle gouge on a bull is its strength and stability. I mean, someone not told me off, someone mentioned he was told never to use a spindle gouge for hollowing. Well, I disagree with that, because I quite often use a 3/8 spindle gouge to hollow my goblet bowls. It's the hang over the tool rest. You know, if you're only hanging over 1.5 inches, the spindle gouge will do fine. But anything more than that, it just loses stability because it's thinner stock, obviously. What you're saying there, Pete, again, you know, we can agree to disagree. A spindle gouge is okay in a bowl, but why would you use a spindle gouge to try and hollow out a bowl? If you know, it depends on the size of the bowl. If it's a little bowl, it's got to do fine. But your main problem is if you've got a bigger bowl and you use a spindle gouge, your stability is compromised, in my opinion. That's just me. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your very kind words too. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Leroy. Thank you, HRV from Croatia. Very, very kind of you coming. Appreciate it. Lewis. No, it's not Lewis. Yes, it is Lewis. Lewis, thank you very much. Enjoyed your company. And hopefully see you again. Terry Bray. Mike, if you don't go back to work, will you miss the duration you have spent on YouTube Live and the pleasure you have given? Yes, I will, is the answer to that, Terry. But I'll still hopefully do lives, but it won't be so often. Michael Stratton. Simon Oak round bar 6mm hollowing tool should be fun. Yes, it should be, Michael. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Brilliant bit of kit, mate. Oh yeah, yes. Pete's saying he uses a spindle gouge decorator. Yeah, of course you can. Sorry. Basically, when you talk about bowls and spindle gouges, people are asking me whether it's okay to turn a bowl with a spindle gouge. Well, my answer is if it's anything over 4 inches in diameter, no, it's not, because your stability will be compromised. I've ever been scared away from the lathe after a flying piece. Leona, this sounds very big-headed. No, I haven't. But then, having said that, I've never been injured. I've dropped a skew on my foot, I've cut my foot. I've dropped a gouge on my foot and cut my foot, but I've had plenty of things fly off the lathe, but I've been, I say, lucky. They say the more experience and practice, the luckier you get. I've never actually been smacked in the gob or been hit by anything. I've had bowls and goblets fly everywhere, but it's never shaken me to the degree of not wanting to turn again, thankfully. Okay, Lenny, you take care, mate. Thanks for coming. Okay, take care, Mike, the Dutch turner. Lovely to see you, and thanks very much for coming, mate. I appreciate it. See you again. Gareth Silk. Sorry I was late. No problem, Gareth. If you don't fall asleep, because it's a long one, I'll try and edit the end before I go back in the house. And happy turning to you as well, Gareth. Take care, mate. Always nice to see you. Yeah. Terry Bray agrees with me, Mike. It's a great tool. It really is. And if you need any advice, don't ring me because I haven't got the faintest idea. Peak Twistery, Leona, it happens. It's a risk, but life is about risk. You need to be careful to minimise it. Yeah. We all make mistakes. And people say, well, mistakes, you learn by them. If you're lucky enough not to get injured, you do learn by them sometimes. Good on you, Leona. I will say one thing. If you do feel a bit concerned about it, as you have obviously been, you've possibly done the best thing. You sat back and just let it sort of settle a bit. Because it also can be very upsetting and daunting. And at the end of the day, you know, it's for enjoyment. And if you don't enjoy doing it, leave it for a day or two. And you get the pangs to go back, and you go back. Right guys, it's gone 10 o'clock. I'm going to call it an evening. Thank you all, the ones that are left. Thank you very, very much indeed for turning up. I've thoroughly enjoyed your company. If there are any newer turners left watching, I hope you've learned a bit, not just from me, but from the wealth of experience that's been on the chat as well. I think it's been great. There's going to be 2 or 3 more of these, and I hope you come and join in those as well. I'll say goodnight to you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Leona. Good night, Pete. All the best. Good night, Adam. Thank you, David. Good night. Good night, Dave Rothwell. All the very best. Good night, Shay. And anybody else that's left. Thanks, Eric Brown. Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you very much indeed. My pleasure, Michael. There wasn't a lot of knowledge involved, as you well know. I haven't got a lot. All the best, Andy. From Llanelli. You take care, mate. Good night, Patrick. Cheers. I'm just staying for 2 seconds now to say goodnight to everybody properly. You are a bit late, Ruben, I'm afraid. I'm just about to sign off, mate. But thanks very much for turning up. I do appreciate it. And I'm going to have a quick vape on camera now just to say goodnight to everybody. Okay, that's it. I'm really going now. Thank you all very much, and I'll see you very soon. Take care now. Good night.